This is the Thames Tunnel, running under the River Thames in East London, connecting Wapping with Rotherhithe. It is a great two-listed structure, best known for being the world's first underwater passage and hence also the first tunnel under a river, at least once that's been confirmed. Having been completed in 1843, it is now used by the London Overground's freshly named Windrush Line and considered by many to be the eighth wonder of the world. As this was a monumental feat of engineering by the engineers Mark Brunel and his more famous son Isambard Kingdom Brunel, taking over 18 years to complete, helping Londoners avoid the much crowded London Bridge and still be able to cross the Thames in East London, even though it took a whopping 18 years to complete. That was a bad pun. But have you ever wondered what came next after this? Well, look no further than London's most visited paid attraction, the Tower of London. Located at the heart of the city, the castle complex welcomes close to 3 million visitors every year, translating to over 7,000 visits a day. But hardly any of them would realize that when they're passing through the small little cylindrical brick structure right next to the castle's welcome center, they're passing through the entrance leading up, or rather leading down, to a forgotten tunnel that was the world's first deep-level underground railway, as well as London's second tunnel under the Thames after the aforementioned Thames Tunnel. This was a pivotal undertaking during the Victorian age because, in comparison to the latter that took a whopping 18 years to complete, totaling over 900 months of hard work, the Tower Subway following it, in contrast, only took just a minuscule 14 weeks of tunneling to be dug. That's only 1.5% of the time it took to dig under the very same river in the very same city, just a couple of decades later. You can tell how quick engineering was progressing in the 19th century. We can credit this success in large part to Peter William Barlow, who used a similar tunneling shield to the one that helped dig the Thames Tunnel a few decades ago, but one crucial change he made was to turn the cross-section of the cage to be circular rather than rectangular in shape, which was much better suited for tunneling through the earth, and this was built with the help of his former pupil, James Henry Greathead, who surely had a great head because, a couple of decades later, he went on to engineer the world's first electric tube railway in the form of the City and South London Railway, running between Stockwell and King William Street in 1890, today part of the Northern Line along its Bank branch. You can even find a nice statue of him built right outside Bank Tube Station itself along Cornhill, which uniquely sits in the middle of the road like a traffic island. Having started its construction in 1869, the 410-meter-long tunnel opened to the public in August 1970, with a set of slits at either end of the tunnel leading down to a cable-hauled narrow-gauge railway, making this the world's first deep-level railway, but not the world's first underground railway, as that title was taken by the Metropolitan Railway, also in London a few years earlier, back in January 1863, running between Paddington and Farringdon Street, forming part of today's Circle, Hammersmith and City, and Metropolitan lines. The difference is that unlike the Metropolitan Railway, which was built using the much disruptive cut and cover method and ran trains right under the ground at subsurface level, the Tower Subway was dug through the London clay using a tunneling shield in a tube shape at a deeper level to run trains, becoming the first of its kind. At the same time, it's worth noting though that it wasn't the first railway to cross under the River Thames either, as the aforementioned Thames Tunnel, also in London, was converted to a railway tunnel and ran its first train under the Thames just months earlier in December 1869. However, you could argue that the Tower Subway had London's first cable car, opening over 140 years before Boris Johnson decided to open this thing that's even less popular. The cable car that the Tower Subway used was a single wooden rail car shuttling back and forth carrying up to 12 passengers each way. However, despite its tremendous success in tunneling technology, the railway shut just 4 months after opening by December 1870, as it was unprofitable and instead was decided to convert it into a pedestrian subway. As a result, the shafts at either ends had their passenger lifts replaced by spiral staircases, the rail car and steam engines were thrown out, and gas lights were installed. And the conversion itself took just around 2 weeks to complete. However, one notable issue was how small it was. So much so that the son of the famed novelist Charles Dickens, the Jr., once commented that there is not much headroom left, hinting at how claustrophobic the walk might have felt. It is interesting to note, however, the contrast between the Thames Tunnel and the Tower Subway, given the former was converted from pedestrian to railway use, whilst the latter went the opposite direction and instead converted from a railway to pedestrian use. The pedestrian subway nonetheless was relatively a great success, with around 1 million pedestrians using it to cross the Thames annually for over 2 decades, until the year 1894. And this was when perhaps the world's most famous bridge opened under the name of Tower Bridge, just a couple of hundred meters away. Yes, the London Bridge is falling down, that you've been hearing as a toddler refers to this boring bridge instead. Given that it was a toll-free way to cross and perhaps more convenient, given that you don't need to sink and float up and down anymore, it led to a sudden decline in the demand for the tunnel's use. Just 3 years later, by 1897, the Parliament passed the Tower Subway Act 1897 and sold it to the London Hydraulic Power Company, which led to the subway closing for public use by 1898. Since then, it started carrying hydraulic cables and now water mains as it does today. The much forgotten tunnel since then was partly damaged when a German bomb exploded on the riverbed close to the tunnel's roof during World War II, but reportedly has survived intact, showing how strong the original construction had really been. But that's a history bit. What can you see if you decide to pay a visit today? For starters, there is this lovely drum-shaped tower on Petty Wales right by the entrance to the Tower of London at the tunnel's northern shaft as mentioned at the start, albeit this isn't the original entrance from the 19th century and rather was built by the aforementioned London Hydraulic Power Company in 1926, long after it closed to the public. Which means that it is around 99 years old by now, so still definitely historic. If you have trouble locating it, then don't worry. Someone has brilliantly decided to open a much more delicious form of subway right behind it that your eyes may more easily spot. I do wonder if that was indeed deliberately planned or just happens to be a subsequent subterranean subway coincidence. That would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Either way, if you have been curiously watching this thinking what may lie at the other end of the tunnel on the south bank, well, then spoilers, there isn't really much to be honest. For that, you will need to cross a river by basically its replacement, walk along Tooley Street until you get to the Unicorn Theatre, and at the junction with Wine Lane is where the southern access portal is located. But although surviving for much longer than its northern counterpart, the original kiosk at this end also got demolished sometime around the 1990s, and today we're just left with this much modern looking subtle and brutalist-like boring structure that has been subsequently built to access the tunnel nowadays, to fit into its office environment surrounding it, with not even a sign or a plaque referencing the historic relic it leads to, and that's really a shame. So that was a tale of London's forgotten little tunnel and railway that was such a breakthrough in tunneling and engineering technology. But now lies hidden, abandoned and forgotten below our river, like a tiny tube tunnel frozen in time. Especially considering that this was the project that gradually initiated how the London's tube network looks today. If you do want to see how the tunnel lies today in the mid-2020s, then the tunnel's current owner, Vodafone, have released a lovely short video showcasing some footage from the tunnel on the YouTube channel that's worth a watch, just like mine. And I'll link it in the info card and the description for you. And instead, if you want to have a feel of what walking through might have felt like, we have a similar foot tunnel under the Thames at Woolwich dating from 1912, and another at Greenwich as well, which opened 10 years earlier than it, which has a more similar history to the Tower Subway. But before you get ready for all the adventures, I would like to say thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe. Cheers.